So I'm Arnold. I'm CEO of Capricia, and what we're doing is we're composing video games for music. And I'm here to talk why we're doing it and what challenges we're facing and how we're solving them. My mom always, she told me that whenever I'm giving a lecture, I should start with, then she didn't finish the sentence because she said, you're into video games and metal, you're never going to give lectures, right? So, I was into video games and metal, however, and when I was 16, I stumbled upon Dream Theater, Scenes from Memory, good. So that was the first piece of music that I've heard, and this fact changed my life. That wasn't all about being cool. It was about telling a story. The whole album was a concept album. It had a story to it. And the music wasn't there to be awesome or pretty. So if something bad would happen in the story, then the music would be awful. Because it was more important to pass the listener through that experience, through that awful experience. And just as he wouldn't want to go through it, he shouldn't want to listen to it. And this way of thinking changed my life, and I've decided that that's what I want to do for a living. I was a musician, but that's the way I wanted to compose. That's thematic composition. So I went and I studied film scoring. I decided I also want to be a rock star. So I've opened Capricia, which is originally, we were doing theatrical metal, which basically means we were doing metal, but we had stories to our songs, and we first wrote the stories and then composed them. We had an album, we performed in Israel's biggest venues, we signed a record deal with Melodic Revolution Records, it's an American-based company. We played on Israeli radio stations, American radio stations, Europe. All in all, we did well for a band. And at the end of a lot of years of hard work, we were doing something around $200 a month. At that time, I ended my studies and I became a composer for video games because I liked video games and I wanted to compose stories, and video games are the best stories. Over the years, I've worked on a few projects, but the one I remember the most was the first one, in which I had to compose a trailer for a company, and I ended up receiving more than $200 for the trailer. And that was awesome, not because it was good money. It was awesome because up until that point, it was absolutely clear to me that I have to choose between art and food, right? You can't have both. And suddenly I met this new industry which was as artistic as music in my mind, and it also was profitable. You could do it and make a living. And that was an amazing thing to me, and I saw an industry which is doing amazing things, right? So I became a part of it, and I started working as a composer. At some point, I decided that I wanted to make my own album. I had a great idea. To a story, it was a modern version of The Beauty and the Beast, and I did a demo, which I want to share a few seconds from with you. And so that was the original idea. And when I would close my eyes and imagine what was happening while this music was playing, I imagined like a huge wall of fire. There were a young girl running away from a crazy dude. I imagined a huge world with stories and characters, and everything around it was so great. And I wanted to share it with my friends, so I sent them a link to my music, and I wanted them to go through that experience with me, right? Like basically what you do when you're making a game. And at some point, I realized that they are not experiencing it the same way I do. They would experience it like that. They would just stare at YouTube, and then I'll tab to another program and listen to it. And that kind of bummed me out because I felt like this deserved more. I wanted to tell the story in a more unique way. So I've decided I want to bring to life what I saw when I closed my eyes, and so I've decided I want to take the album and make it into a video game. And at that point, I understood that I needed money for it, and I kind of met the business side of things, right? So I had to make some research and seeing if it's a good idea and look into the industries. So I went into, did some research into the gaming and the music industries, and we all know that music is doing bad and games are doing pretty good, but the most important thing here is that music is a huge industry, right? I would guess that there isn't one person in this room right now that is not actually a music fan. Everyone who's here has somehow contributed to music's revenue the past year. You went on YouTube, you bought an album, you went to a show, whatever. And yet, this year, the music industry is going to go under 15 billion. Meanwhile, gaming is not so big. We can talk about 1.2 billion, 1.5 billion, depending on how you define a gamer. But if we were just to, and we're always thirsty to users, right? A lot of companies are talking about user acquisitions. And if we were just to take the name music fans and change them to users, we would see something amazing, that if we're looking per user, our monetization, when I say our, I mean the gaming industry, is 34 times better, which is amazing given the fact that we're selling the same things. We're selling entertainment, right? So this convinced me that this, and like imagine if we could take the 6 billion and bring them to gaming, the world would explode, right? And we will be happy and wealthy. And, so this convinced me that it's a good idea, and I've opened Capricia Productions, which is taking music albums and turning them into video games. Today we're doing 4 things. We're developing our own projects like the Birdcage that I'm going to present. We are making music video games for other artists. We're making a matching platform between game developers and musicians, and we are developing our own technologies to better synchronize between the music and games. Or games to music is the more accurate term. So the Birdcage, as I said, it was the project that I showed before. It started as a small indie project. We wanted to do something that was a first of its kind. We didn't want to make just a simple game where you need to press the button at the right time. We wanted the player to go through an experience. It was our own original music, but just like everything else we do, the most important thing perhaps about what we're doing is that we never change the music. The music is pre-composed, it exists prior to the game, and the game is built for that music. And we decided to go multi-platform, again, because not our users are, or not all of our potential users are gamers, so we want to be able to reach them as well as we can. When we started, we made a list of ideal artists that would be great for this project. We decided to reach out and talk to them, and to our surprise, we ended up with almost the exact team that we planned originally. Nowadays, the Birdcage will be performed by guys from Guns N' Roses, Within Temptation, former Evanescence artists, Epica, and a lot of others. Tina Guo, I think, is the best cellist in the world, and you know her work from Diablo 3 and Journey, and it's a good theme that we're very proud of. So we had this vision, that was nice, but when we started working, we felt that each time we were either forced to change the music, something that we decided that we won't do to make the game work, or we were making an album with a bad game. This combination, like finding the sweet spot between the music and a game, was very hard for us. And we sat down and we divided it to 3 things that we think are very important. And the first, like how are we syncing with the music, right? It's all about that. So the first thing that we said is that the player has to feel like everything around him is in perfect sync with the music. The whole world, everything in the game has to have a clear visual connection to the music. The second is story syncing. We wanted to have a story which is affected by the music. So if something dramatic happens in the music, we have to see it in the story. And the last one is we didn't want the player to feel very limited. We didn't want to do a 2D platformer or, again, something that you just need to click on the right time. We wanted to do something where the player truly feels that he's in control. So our solutions to that is for the feeling that everything is connected to the music, we're using visual effects. It can be anything from an explosion to a camera shake, a lightning bolt, whatever. Those are the easiest to make. Story driving effects are basically where, if, for example, we have a metal track and then it becomes a solo piano or something like that. So at that point, we will change the story. It won't just be a small visual effect. It will be something dramatic that changes within the game. And that's kind of impossible to explain, but this illusion of choice. The players are limited by time, but we always try to build it in such a way that they don't feel it. They feel that they're always in control. So the same demo that people would look at the YouTube video, today they're experiencing it like this. I'm gonna stop it here, but this is how it looks like today. It's we're having the visual effects, the explosions, to better synchronize the feeling that everything is connected. The story driving effects are like the appearance of the bad guy, and for example, after the part that we're seeing, you have time to walk around the room, and at some point he will enter the room, and that's when something amazing, like the music grows back into metal. And the most amazing thing about this part specifically is that players who have played it, and we asked them, just about 2% of them said that they were feeling that they were being pushed into the room at a specific moment in time, which they were. But most of the people playing it after like asked us, oh, so when I'm entering the room, the music changes, right? And that was amazing for us to see, because this showed us that the integration between the music and the game is really good. If they felt that they were so much in control that they felt that the music, that they are the ones changing the music, although in fact the music doesn't change. So the past few months has been pretty interesting for us. We are having a successful crowdfunding campaign on Patreon. It's like an ongoing crowdfunding platform. We received Steam Greenlight in under 10 days. Released the demo, which you just saw, and we released 3,800 copies for pre-sales, and those were sold out in 24 hours. We received a lot of press from IGN, Loudwire, Metal Hammer, Rolling Stone magazine, and 2 days ago, Haaretz, which is one of Israel's biggest newspaper, asking if gaming is the salvation for the music industry. I'm not showing this to show off and say how cool we are. I'm showing this to convince you that music can be a great marketing engine. It's a great way to bring people into your game, and people who would never be interested in it if it wasn't for this fact. We're also making music video games for other artists, taking their music and turning it into games. This is a game for Bumblefoot that we're working on. He's the guitarist of Guns N' Roses. Our platform is a matching platform between game developers who want to work on a game for bands, and the big good thing about it is that when they release their game, they have a great audience that is interested in it, instead of just like their 100 friends and plus their marketing budget. So that's a great way to acquire users, and obviously musicians are interested in it because it's another form of revenue for them. And we're working on our own music synchronization technologies, which automatically synchronize between music and games. We're working with developers who are we're giving it to the developers who are working with us. We're mostly now working with Unreal Engine 4, but starting to developing for Unity and CryEngine. And this is how it looks like. I kind of wanted to make a live demonstration, but it didn't work out. So you're just going to have to trust me that we just took a random drums track and placed it into the level. And everything you're going to see happens automatically. And we can place any piece of music in it. And this is our mechanics. That everything here happens automatically and because of the music. And the last thought I want to leave you with is that 2008, when Guitar Hero and Rock Band were at their best, they had roughly 19.3% of the market. We can argue about the numbers. Some would say it was closer to 10, but it was somewhere there. And they were discontinued on 2010, I think. And now we're at about 1.2% of music games in the market. And we believe that it's a huge market that is out there waiting for cool games to come out. And it's a great marketing engine, as I've said before. And we think that in a few years, this way of consuming music will be a legitimate way. And this is how bands are going to make music. They will have video clips and they will have games for their music. So thank you so much for coming and listening, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Just want to comment that Guitar Hero and Rock Band are releasing new games right now. I think Rock Band 4 is coming out this week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but we still don't know the numbers, so...
yeah, it's a big
yeah, that's true.
question mark. Yeah.
And by the way, part of the reason is probably that they understand that there is a gap. There is like a big market gap of music video games, and there is an audience for it, and they know that. That's my guess.
What do you think? What do you think happened to the huge market share for music games that was 5 years ago? Where did it all go? Why?
Okay, so what I think happened is that they kind of took this idea of taking music and making a game for it. They made a fun game, and then they made another game which was exactly the same, and they made another game which was exactly the same, and then they made another game which was exactly the same, but they changed the lighting of the... It was the same game, and after 5 years, people just got fed up of playing the same 4 buttons. But if they were to release a different game, then I think it would work. Again, just a guess, but that's basically why we're doing what we're doing.
Are there any plans to make the tools, like the synchronization plugins, presumably, available for other developers?
Yeah, of course. The whole idea behind the platform that I mentioned earlier is that we're sharing those tools with the developers who are interested in the platform, and we find a match for them in music, and we are sharing those tools. Yeah, of course.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi. If the music comes first, how do you choose what game to put to it? How do you choose the content of the
We're
game?
building the game especially for the music. The synchronization tools are just there to help us, but every game is customly made.
How do you choose the content of the game?
if it's for our project or for, depending like if it's for our own project or if it's for a different artist. If it's for a different artist, then we're making a brainstorming session and we're showing a few ideas with them. We're kind of working with them in order to see what would work best for the song or the album because they know it better. If it's our own project, then it's easy. We just do cool things.
You said you were doing games for multi-platforms, so basically, how do you meet challenges when it comes to mobile and tablet because of just music compression and the immersion that you guys are going for?
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to answer because we still haven't released the game for mobile and touchscreen and stuff like that, and it's a huge challenge for us, and we already know that it's going to be different. They're not going to be exactly the same, and the mechanics will be different for those devices, as well as the biggest actually problem with this is that a lot of what we do is relying on post-processing, and post-processing is very, very hard for mobile. So it's a big issue, and it's much, like in this case, it's harder to develop those things for mobile, and we're working on it. But we are having a lot of problems, like you're right.
Okay. Thank you, Arnold.
Thank you.